All right, let's start out by saying Barakateh Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is That Great City. And I'm joined with the Elder Kanak
Shalom.
from the Bay Area camp. And pretty much this morning, I was listening to some videos, doing a little stretching. And I was listening to a video Elder Pastor was doing, but I can't remember. It was the hyperinflation one, I think. And it just got me to thinking about America and just thinking in general about that great city, you know. And that great city in scripture and prophecy fits no other country but America. All other countries that have a good financial standing today is because of America. They made that possible because the way America skyrocketed pretty much to the moon, as far as economically, you know, was based off of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, which made the American dollar the world currency pretty much. As we spoke before, you had the Dutch guilder that was popular back in the 1700s. I believe there was a Bank of Amsterdam that was created that actually gave them their teeth, you know, and made that currency popular, very popular to trade in. And then after that, I believe it was the mid 1800s when the British pound became the world reserve currency. And then about 100 years later, the American dollar, the USD, the FRN, Federal Reserve Note, became the world currency, or the currency that the whole world had to trade in. And that's pretty much what made America shoot to the moon, so to speak, you know, with, you know, their economy. And all nations benefited off of that, even though, you know, a lot of nations are in debt because of these U.S. bonds and, you know, and the debt of the dollar, you know. And I'm not an economic expert, you know, I don't know all the ins and outs. I just know, you know, a few things, you know, to make sense of this economy and the money system, you know. But that's pretty much what made the world rich, trading with America. Right now, as we speak, I was just watching a video where in China right now, all of those shipping containers are stacking up at the port because they, you know, this whole thing that's going on, there's a trade war going on between America, China, and certain other countries. China, from what I just read, they're not shipping, you know, if it's accurate, they're not shipping any of those rare earth minerals to America that America needs so bad. And like they say in Beijing, they got, you know, the market cornered on that. You know, so it's like a lot of economic strife going on worldwide. You have something?
Yeah, this is Ezekiel 28:3. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. Mm-hmm. There is no secret that they can hide from thee.
Right, that's dealing with Esau. Now, back then, you had the king of Tyrus. But this prophecy here applies to Esau today, to America, because they're the ones that know all of these mysteries. Now, somebody asked me a while ago, if Daniel is a prophet, then why is it that Esau would be wiser than him? Well, it's not in the sense of being spiritual. It didn't say, you know, they were more spiritual than Daniel. It said they were wiser than Daniel, because the prophecies that Daniel had back then, you know, he didn't understand what those prophecies were. Esau today understands those prophecies. He can break down, even when you go to the blue letter, when you go to the different beasts, it gives you, it says the Babylonians, it'll say the Medo-Persians, it'll say the Greeks, it'll say the Romans. Mm-hmm. So in that case, they're wiser than Daniel because they understand certain of these prophecies that he said. Did you want to say
No,
something?
no, that was it.
Go ahead.
It says, with thy wisdom and with thy understanding that has gotten thee riches.
Right, with thy wisdom and with thy understanding thou hast gotten thee riches. And this is why Meyer Amschel Bauer said, give me control of the nation's money and I care not who makes the laws. Because ultimately, the person that controls the money system controls everything around. There's a saying, you know, money talks, bullshit walks. You know, you have, the scriptures speak about the money. You actually have control of, you know, how things are going to operate. You know, and this is why these big businesses that are owned by the international bankers have lobbyists, I believe they're called, lobbying, you know, in Congress for the senators, congressmen, so on and so forth, to pass legislation that's beneficial to big corporations, you see? So that way, these big corporations can get the benefit of these laws to help their corporations become even stronger and more rich. Go ahead.
Yep, it says, with thy wisdom and with thy understanding thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures.
Right, because they understand that gold and silver is true money. See, they got the world, especially Jake here in America, especially in America, you know, I wouldn't even say the world, but in America, they got especially Jake, you know, caught up in the glitz and the glamour, you know, with believing that having stacks, getting that bag is real money. You want to say something?
No, you got
know, and you know, you'll have boxers, you'll have rappers, you know, and certain other entertainers, you know, flaunting stacks and racks of FRNs, $100, you know, Benjamin Franklin's and your, you know, grants and all the different, you know, monetary bills are what they call dead presidents, and that's not real money. That's not real money. Those are nothing but debt-bearing notes. Every time you take on that so-called or that currency, you become more and more in debt to the system.
Well, didn't was the song with Biggie and Puff Daddy, more money, more problems?
There you go.
Because it is a debt-bearing note. Because the more money you have in this society, really the more debt you're in.
Yep.
The more you're invested into the system. All right. I got you moment when he, and really the whole world, when he takes out this fiat currency and he gives you a digital currency.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the Apostle Paul warned in Timothy, the 6th chapter, speaks about the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And it says, you flee from these things, because those that chase after the money will pierce themselves through with many hurtful lusts, foolish and hurtful lusts. Because when you have money in this society, like Elder Pastor was breaking down the whole, you know, the whole reparations thing, right? And if, you know, if they would give Jake reparations, which they're not, they would have to give $1 million per family for like 50 years or something along those lines. They're not going to do that, you know, because then there was a thought that I had in mind, but kind of escaped me for the moment. But nevertheless, you know, this system is set up as a debt-bearing system.
Yeah.
If the Spirit brings it back,
well, if Esau did that, really the economy would go into hyperinflation.
Yep.
You know, because you have all that money coming into the so-called black man's hands.
Right.
And where is that money going? Right. What are they going to do with that money?
Spend it.
They're going to spend it. And they're going to spend it right back into the system.
Yep.
And then also the other nations will be mad. Esau will be hot.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of contention.
Pushback.
A lot of pushback. You know, because Jake is getting that money. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Esau didn't give you money come out of slavery. He's not going to give you money now. And if he does give you some money, it's going to be digital money.
Right.
And it's going to be, you know, you have to do something for him.
Right. Yeah, this came back, and pretty much if Jake was to get that money, which they're not, they're going to go spend it like the elder just said. You know, and that's the thing. When you have money, you want to spend money.
Yep.
And the thing about it is when you have everything that you want, you're going to still want to spend money. You're still going to want to do things. And that's where you get caught up in all this freakism and different things, because you have so much money. You could do, you know, have sex with whoever you want to have sex with, eat whatever you want to eat. And it's a treacherous lifestyle, a decadent. Why you see these celebrities, they look hurt.
Yeah.
Here it is, they're supposed on screen, they all happy, they got all this so-called money, you know, but really they're really hurting. You know, they're really jacked up because, you know, this system is set up as a trap, as a snare. That's why even on the back of your $1 bill, you have what's known as cobwebs.
Yep.
You can't really see them unless you really look at it really good. On the outer edges, you know, of that dollar bill, you have a bunch of cobwebs, because this monetary system ties you up, you know, in debt-wise to the individuals that set up the system in the first place, which are the international banking families, beginning with the Rothschilds, you know, who set up the Federal Reserve agency.
Yep.
See, and their whole thing is to use debt as a means to control the
Oh,
world.
let me get a precept.
Bring it out.
Yeah, and that's part of Esau's subtlety, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, on that dollar bill, there's also a spider there as well.
Owl. There's an owl.
Owl. It's the owl, not the spider.
Yep.
Salakia.
That's all right.
You know. But let me get Proverbs. Okay. 22.
Oh yeah. You know, and
Yep.
that's why they're using it, because they know pretty much that those which are really debt-bearing notes will put people into debt slavery, and they understand that debt slavery is a forever slavery.
Yep.
You know, and that's why eventually they want to do what? Put the charagma, you know, into the people out there to create a perpetual slave, branding them, you know, because they put the people in so much debt that in order for you to get out of it, you got to accept the new monetary system. And that new monetary system will lead to your demise. You know, will lead to your destruction if you accept it.
Yep, this is Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender.
Right, the borrower is servant to the lender. And when you start taking on those dollar bills, you become a borrower. Now the scriptures speak about in the curses that these nations would lend to us, and we would not be able to lend to them. You know? So the bottom line is we're debt slaves right now. And Esau is about to bring this shift. This is why, you know, Trump is acting erratic with the economy, which Biden destroyed, and I'm about to call him Bush. Trump is just putting the finishing nails in the coffin. You want to say something?
Yeah. It's a tag team. You know, it's pretty much they're on the same team, and they're playing their role. They're playing their part. You know, for the destruction of Babylon the Great, ultimately to bring the U.S., this great city, into the NW to the O. That's what it's all about. So Biden had his role. Even Obama had his role before that. Bush had his role. All the presidents had their role. All right, and Trump is just playing, which we believe he's that last guy to finish it off. The cherry on the top, if you will.
The finisher.
The finisher.
Yep.
Or the closer. You know, in baseball, the closer. Right? To close the game out. That's Trump. All right, that's Nero Trump.
And he's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now he's coming with all type of manner of demonic laws to continue to put you in more of perpetual slavery.
Yeah, and there's no coincidence that his name is Trump.
There you go.
You know, the last Trump. You know, so I mean, everything is lining up prophecy-wise that he will be that cruel Lord. You know, that's going to bring the total demise of this great city known as America, which in prophecy is known as Babylon the Great. Go ahead.
Yeah, back in Ezekiel 28, It says, Ezekiel 28:5, by thy great wisdom and by thy traffic thou hast gotten thy riches, thou hast increased thy riches, and thy heart is lifted up because of thy riches.
Right, and that's what your heart is lifted up so much because the Lord gave you this technology, these riches that you never think you're going down. The inward thought is that the houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names, and even bodies of water.
Yeah.
Talking about they're gonna take over Canada, they're gonna take over Greenland. They rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. I mean, the audacity of these goddamn devils. But that's okay. Keep doing that, because as you keep doing that, you're causing more friction and more hatred of the nations towards you. That's why I said the nations that are drunken of that cup, therefore the nations are mad. They're bugged out, but they're also pissed off too. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was it on that. Or I can read
right.
one more verse.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Read
Yeah,
that,
it says, thus said the Lord, power, because thou hast set thy heart as the heart of the Most High. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness.
Beautiful, because what's your brightness? You're Luciferian, behind the scenes, manipulating everything behind the scenes. Yep. They're going to bring you down. Why? Because the Most High is bringing you down. Go to Isaiah 14:4. The Most High, matter of fact, start at 3. The Most High is bringing you down. He's the one that systematically got you in this web. You got the world in the economic web. The Most High got you in a prophetic web. That's a lesson. The Lord got E in a prophetic web. Go ahead.
Isaiah 14:3. It says, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve.
Right. So the Lord, pretty much, what the Lord was showing Isaiah was the future, right? To when the Lord is about to deliver the nation of Israel out of this captivity, and this time the elect. These are things that's going to be taking place. Go ahead.
Yep. It says, verse 4, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon.
Right, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. And a proverb is pretty much like a taunt, something that you taunt somebody with. Like they used to say, one little, two little, three little Indians, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a nigga by the toe, calling people being, those are like proverbs. So the proverb today, see, because back then we couldn't speak against Esau like that. We would have got lynched, we would have got put on a firing squad, we would have got put to death. But today, the prophet out here in the streets proclaiming boldly the downfall of this great city, America, Babylon the Great. Go ahead.
Yep. It says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased.
Right. How has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. And when you look at in certain Bibles, right, in the where the precepts are, in some precepts it says the exactress of gold. Woo. All right. And the exactress of gold. When you exact something, is you're demanding a payment from somebody by force. And why is that? Because you accepted the economic-based system through the currency of the FRN that Esau put out there, for you to operate in this system. So therefore, you are in debt or indebted to this devil economically.
Yep. It says the Lord has broken the staff of the wicked.
The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked. Why? Because the Lord is the one that set him up. Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai set up each empire, and they had a certain amount of time to rule. And after they ruled for a certain amount of time, then they would be brought down.
Yep. And the scepter of the rulers.
And the scepter of the rulers, because you're ruling, and you also have the nations that are ruling with you as puppets. Go ahead.
Yep. It says, he who smote the people with a continual stroke.
And your stroke is continual. See, the thing about Esau, he doesn't do everything in one shot. He introduces it gradually.
Yep. Gradualism. Yeah, gradualism. He doesn't press upon you all of a sudden. He little by littles you, you know, here a little, there a little.
He little by little you.
He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth.
Right, because now the persecution is against them. All nations right now are against Esau. Even their own like they used to say back in the days, I believe that was High Priest Ariel used to say, and other men, even your own cracker kind is coming against you, you know, and looking at your behavior, you know, like I was saying it, and Elder Pastor was saying it too. Like J.D. Vance is, he's just all he's doing is going around cursing out these so-called European nations, you know, and it's like he giving them a tongue lashing. Because I mentioned that when he went to address these so-called European countries, they were, praising, say, okay, good, he's coming to speak to us, and the whole time he was just giving them a tongue lashing. So even your own kind is mad at your ass, So everybody's coming against you.
Yeah, Esau was more stout than his neighbors.
Beautiful.
Out of all the Edomites here in America are the most proud. And they, as it says in Psalms, the 10th chapter, he puffeth at his enemies.
Yep.
So he's going around huffing and puffing. But see, what's going to happen is these nations are going to band together to come against them. Yep. And that's not what he's taking in consideration. Right. I got this quick precept right here.
Bring it out.
Yeah, this is Obadiah, verse 6. How are the things that Esau searched out?
You could break it down.
How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. Yeah, Esau, he has all these alliances, right? Even the alliance with, NATO and the EU, the other Edomite nations, they're going to turn against him. All right, what is that? Revelation 17. The beast shall hate the whore.
Yep.
Okay, that the great city.
That's it.
All right, those Edomite nations, they're going to hate this great city because they're systematically, what Esau is doing with all these tariffs, right, is he's destroying Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, even the Nord Stream pipeline, Esau under Biden, they destroyed that Nord Stream pipeline. They pretty much messed up the German economy, the French economy, because they were getting natural gas from cheap gas at that.
Yeah. From
Russia. And what did America say? Hey, you know what? You got to buy our gas at a premium.
Yep.
All right. And then you have a lot of those heathen nations flooding in. They have immigration crisis as well, just like here in America. And it's all tied back to the policies of America, because they really control everything.
Yep.
Okay. It says, and prevailed against thee, they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him.
Right.
Okay. And Esau, he gives, that bread is talking about that aid.
Yep.
Because he like, for example, he's giving Israel money for bombs and weapons. But at the same token, he's also giving aid to the Palestinians.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So he'll do that. He'll bomb you, but he'll give you aid too. Here's, don't say nothing. Shut up. It's okay. Well, these nations are going to turn against you. They're going to say, to hell with your money, like the Medes. It says in Isaiah, right? Was that Isaiah the 14th chapter? 13. The 13th chapter, right? 13. Yep. Where it said the Medes, they're not going to care for your gold and your silver.
Right. Well, that's the Russians.
The Russians. That's it.
Because you're one thing that the Rothschilds have done is they always finance both sides of the war, because they stand to make money off of both sides anyway, because they set up these wars, and then when it says in Obadiah where it says there's no understanding in him, Esau's going to be, he's like a straight up retard. Here it is, you do all this wicked shit to people, and then you give them money and they turn against you, and you act like, well, why are they doing this? Like it's like saying, asking Jake in America, right, or the so-called Native American Indians, the so-called Seminole Indians, the so-called Negroes, so-called Mexicans, so on and so forth. Why are you mad at us, motherfucker? Do you know what you've done? I was thinking about this morning. These devils, these devils that are so-called patriots of America. This is our land. No, motherfucker, this ain't your land. You stole this land. You conquered this land. But then they have the audacity to say that this is their land. This is not your land. You got an inheritance, off of stolen land. off of the death and murder and rape and pillaging of our people. You know, it's just like, and then you got it as an inheritance. So it's just like saying you have a man that makes his living off of going to robbing banks. He robbed all banks. He became super rich robbing banks. And then he leaves that inheritance to his sons when he dies, and they inherit it, and they act like that's a great inheritance. First of all, your inheritance is robbery, thievery. It's not an honest, it's not an honest inheritance. That's why you're going to lose everything. That's why it says according to the
his substance shall the restitution be.
The water. That's it. So is there more on that?
Yeah, that was pretty much it on that.
All right. So we got to cut.
Yeah, we're going to cut right here.
Okay, and then I'll go back to. Matter of fact, you know what? Go to real quick to Revelation 17 and 18. Okay. Because it's funny because I was gonna start off with that, but with the Spirit, led it to where it wanted it to go. All right. You motherfuckers gonna stop. All right, cool. All right.
Yep. Revelation. Make a left right here.
Okay.
17 and 18. It says, and the woman was in that great city.
America, that great city. Now, what's another name? Jump to the 5th verse.
Gone.
This is America. This is prophetic. The prophetic name, one of the prophetic names of America, which is Babylon the Great.
Yep. Revelation 17 and 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
So that's what this is. This is America, Babylon the Great. It's also known spiritually as Egypt, spiritually as Sodom. It's also known as Nineveh, so on and so forth. All of these empires that ruled in the past, that had their riches, their witchcraft, their different rituals and all of that, that all applies today to America. All right? And America is going to be destroyed. When you go to Revelation 18, right, it speaks about the great destruction that's going to take place in this place. If you go straight to go to like the 6th verse.
Okay. This is Revelation 18 and 6. It says, can I start at 5?
Yeah.
It says, for her sins have reached.
And if you want to say anything,
For her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High has remembered her iniquities.
Mm-hmm.
Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works.
Yeah, because nobody gets away. Everybody is going to pay. You got to pay. You got to pay for your crimes. You did the crime, boy. You got to do the time, boy. Mm-hmm. Inside joke, but it's true. The stuff that you've done, they have a term called the chickens are coming home to roost, meaning you reap what you sow. He that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which ye have done. So there's no way you're going to escape your judgment. And not only did you fuck us over, but you also fucked the nations over.
Mm-hmm. It says, in the cup which she has filled to her double. How much she has glorified herself.
And that's why it says in the cup that she has filled to her double. That's why in the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, when the rich man was getting his ass kicked, in slavery, he was asking Abraham, look, please, have Lazarus, dip his finger in some water. What that represents is tell him to be light. Tell him to, go a little easier on me. But you didn't go easy on us, motherfucker. Hey, I always make reference in the spirit to the council that Rehoboam had with the old men and the young men. Yep. And then what was the ultimate thing that Rehoboam says? I'm going to be harder with you with my pinky than my father was on the women with his loins. So pretty much, that's a reference, when you say, dip your finger in the water, it's a reference of lighten the load, lighten the hell on me. That's what it's talking about. So but you ain't gonna get the load lightened off of you.
Yeah, what is the scripture where it talks about he has not shown mercy?
Right, James 2.
Yeah, James 2.
Yeah, he shall have judgment without mercy that have showed no mercy.
We just read in Isaiah that it was that continual stroke.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't light off, and he's still not lighting off. You know, when our iniquity was at an end, Esau, he put more hell upon us.
Yep.
He's doubling down on you know the stroke upon Jake, and then he's about to do this last stroke, which is going to be the MOTB, man.
Oh yeah.
And put you in perpetual slavery. Okay,
It's
but
gonna
the
get
Lord is
hot
not
out
going
here.
to slack you.
No, you got it.
And the Lord is not going to allow that to happen to his elect.
That's it.
Okay, so let me go back.
It's gonna get hot out here.
Yep. It says, how much she has glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her.
Right, because this place, these devils, they lived it up. You know, that's why it speaks about in Isaiah 24 that they're going to be gathered as prisoners in the pit. You know, because they've never experienced hard. They never experienced, you know, working a hard day, making a decent day's wage.
Yeah, honest living.
There you go.
They never had an honest living. Everything they've gotten, like Yahushua said in John the 8th chapter, the thief cometh not, but to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah, John 10.
John 10.
Yep.
All right, the thief cometh not, but to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's essentially, that's Esau.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done anything to make us believe that he has changed.
Right.
He's doing the same. He's the same old serpent.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. And that's why it says, when you cease to spoil, you shall be spoiled. And when you cease to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee.
It says, for she has said in her heart.
Nice.
For she has said in her heart, I sit a queen and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire.
And that's the judgment for America. That's what the scriptures call the lake of fire. That's what the lake of fire is. Not no place you go and burn forever, you know, in hell. The lake of fire is America being totally engulfed in fire from the nuclear missiles and from, you know, the lasers from the chariots. Okay?
For strong is the Lord power who judgeth her.
Right, and it's going to only take the Lord an hour to take this place out. You know, because you got to figure, you know, from the time of launch in Russia and other places to the time of impact, it only the ICBMs take about half hour, 25 minutes to a half hour. The hypersonic missiles are much quicker than that.
Yeah, like 20 minutes, if that.
Yeah, so when they start hitting, it's going to be over before it even started. So you could understand. So this place is going to go up in flames. As long as these devils have been in rulership, and as long as they've been building their new world order, going back to the Renaissance period, it's going to go up in smoke in an hour. You know? So all of this treacherous shit that you've done in the world the Lord is going to overturn it in an hour. How about that?
This Zephaniah 1:18. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath.
That's right.
But the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land.
Right, and I believe there's one in Proverbs 11:4. I think it is. It's an oldie but goodie.
Yeah, this is Proverbs 11:4. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death.
Right, and you don't have a righteous bone in you, so you're destined for destruction. You want to say anything else?
That was it.
So with that, we pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time we say, Shalom.